Welcome to my channel on the best of fantasy. Today I will be discussing A Sword of Bronze and Ashes by Anna Smith Spark. And this review will be spoiler free. Now, A Sword of Bronze and Ashes is the first book in a series, The Making of This World Ruined, and I believe that book two will be coming out in 2025. I do not know how many books will be in the series, however. And I will also say that reading A Sword of Bronze and Ashes, it does feel like a pretty satisfying ending. You won't be stuck there with a cliffhanger or anything of that nature, but there are obvious ways in which there are threads that are going to be continuing to be explored in this series. Now, the first thing I thought as I was reading this really wonderful book is that it's reminiscent in the best ways of some of my very favorite things that I read when I was younger. Some of the old myths and legends, especially the Celtic ones, the Mabinogion from the Welsh myths and legends, Arthurian and otherwise, the Irish invasion myths, the Ulster cycle, that sort of thing. So this is a story that is filled with that sort of whimsy and color and symbolism and the sort of mythological logic that you have, the way that magic works in these old tales, where a twig or a bone or something like that can become a steed with the right kind of encouragement. It is also very hyperbolic in the way that Celtic myth is, like one swing of the sword lays low 100 foes and that kind of thing. Also, the ways in which you can breathe life back into the dead, although the dead, when they come back, aren't usually quite the same, that sort of thing. And also, the prose, I think, really helps with this as well. I'll be talking about the prose in more detail later, though, because it is something that I deeply admire about this book. And I've been talking about these old myths and legends, but in many ways, A Sword of Bronze and Ashes is also very modern. It reminds me a lot of the A24 film The Green Knight, which is based on the medieval 14th century poem Sir Gawain and the Green Knight. It is like that A24 film, The Green Knight, based on Celtic and medieval source material. But it is also very experimental. It is very weird and dark and artistic and highly imaginative. And it's also filled with ambiguity and raw honesty. And amidst this mythological backdrop that you have in the story and these feats of magic, you have these characters who are displaying very human relationships and problems. They love and they quarrel. They bleed and they fart. Most of all, they show the complexity of our inner thoughtscapes in terms of how we think in our most honest moments of ourselves and of our loved ones and the other people who define us in our lives, sometimes even foes. There's this slipperiness of identity that I think is very keenly observed in here. When we're confronted with the unreality of our own self narratives, the story that we tell ourselves about ourselves, sometimes we have this jarring experience where we realize that that is actually not the whole truth and maybe in some ways is actually quite dishonest. This is a story about family and the beauty of it, as well as the compromises and the sacrifices that are involved in maintaining a family. This is a story about marriage in a lot of ways, about motherhood especially, and about aging. It is also, though, a bigger story about redemption and forgiveness and the power that secrets have over our lives and in ways in which those secrets can control our relationships. It also is about how the past can define us and how we can sometimes transcend it all through courage and love. And all of this is achieved through what I consider to be some of the best prose I've come across in recent years. It is poetic at times and beautiful. There is a certain cadence in the moments where there are descriptions of nature and the characters being in nature that I had to read again and again. The opening of the book is just to take a look at the first couple paragraphs, and I think you'll see easily what I mean. At the same time, though, even though it can be very poetic, very lyrical, it can also be very crude and raw and brutal when it needs to be, because there are some very brutal moments in here. Anna Smith Spark is not called the Queen of Grimdark for nothing here, and you can see that is definitely a hallmark of this particular tale for sure. But the prose is just, it's so versatile in that sense. It really does serve the purpose of the moment magnificently. And it's also very experimental. It pushes the limits of words in a way like Gene Wolfe does. I was chatting with the author Jenny Wirtz about reading this book, and Jenny Wirtz, whose assessment I value tremendously, compared the writing to that of Gene Wolfe in that sense, and I think it was a very astute observation. So yes, it is very smart and provocative, this story, and a lot of that is achieved through the versatility of this prose. So you can hear me, this is a lot of praise here, and I am wondering, have I discovered a new favorite author? And I do think that I'm going to have to read some more by Anna Smith Spark and find out, but I think there's a very good chance of that indeed, and I am very much looking forward to the sequel to A Sword of Bronze and Ashes. But that is it for me for now. Until next time.